We are back, and we're going to be doing 2nd John and 3rd John together. These are short books, kind of echo 1st John, but really neat stuff that's in here. So let's kind of start this off. Austin, would you like to read 2nd John, just verses 1 through 7? Would you do that?
Okay. The elder to the elect lady and her children, whom I love in truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth that abides in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, in truth and love. I rejoiced greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we were commanded by the Father. And now I ask you, dear lady, not as though I were writing you a new commandment, but the one we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you have heard from the beginning, so that you should walk in it. For many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh. Such a one is the deceiver and the Antichrist.
All right. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
If you've paid any attention to our video on 1st John and any of the other sessions, this is right in line with everything he says. What's similar, I guess I'll ask that question, is he says many things that he said before. What are some of those key words that he uses? Again.
Certainly love.
Yep. Love one another.
Obey his commandments.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Talks about false teachers again, or Antichrist.
Yep. Deceivers that have gone out into the world.
Yeah, I was going to say that's.
There's a lot of repetition, and I think that's good. I need that in my study. You know, I certainly don't have it together, but as a mature Christian, I like to be reminded, hey, do this, do that. Both my boys, sometimes I need to remind them, pick a room up, do these things. So I don't think it's ever a bad thing to have that level of repetition. So
Yeah, and he also has in verse 5, he says he's not writing to her a new commandment, but the one that you've had from the beginning. He said the same thing in the 2nd chapter, I believe, 2nd or 3rd chapter of 1st John. But it's just interesting that it's I don't know, it's pretty consistent, and I think as preachers or as anyone who's in God's Word, you sort of see, I think in 2nd John, the struggle that we all feel. It's like, I'm going to run out of stuff to say, and you have that feeling. I'm only into my 2nd year in preaching ministry, and I know when I first came on, that was kind of the terrifying. Like, I think I've got about 4 weeks of material, so I can make it a good month, and then after that, I'm just like, what do I do? And even John is just, how hard is it for us to get this down about the love that we need to have for each other? And you roll your eyes and you're just like, you just keep repeating ad nauseum, but maybe he's making a point that that's what we should be, doing with one another, is loving one another. So,
And you seem to have contextualized it here. This is a specific group. We don't know exactly the group. The first letter starts out with, all that we've seen and handled and, what we've experienced. It doesn't start out with, here's my group, my audience that I'm addressing, and here's my, grace, mercy, and peace be with you. This just seems so much more personal. Mm-hmm. But again, he said it before, so he can kind of be brief and say, hey, by the way, you guys hear this as well. Just sort of invites them into it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with ministers doing that. I don't know that any of us as preachers have come up with a sermon that's never been preached. We're quoting scripture that's been in existence for 2,000 years. I can't imagine as much education as we've ever come up with something that nobody's ever thought of. We're just reminding people. Yeah. And in a real way, that's exactly what John's doing. He's just saying, look, here's the highlights, and I want you to hit it again. Just a nice little reminder.
Yeah, and I like how he uses that idea that we walk. He uses in verse 6, the walking according to the commandment, and that we should walk in it. Using that language, that but that's that's what he's calling. So it's interesting because it's almost circular. Because he says, "I'm not writing you a new commandment. Love each other." And how do we show what love is? We walk according to the commandments. This is the commandment that I've given you. And you feel a little bit of the, okay, well, is this like, it's not circular logic, but it has some of that feel to it. But it's interesting. I use this example a lot when a preacher friend of mine said once that we really don't have that much of a knowledge power or a knowledge issue, pardon me, within the churches. Like many of our churches, we have like a power issue, like where we're in the sense of we're not daily walking in this and walking in the power of the Spirit, and that language of walking as the day-to-day life is how you live your faith out. We all know this, but we still don't do this because we still treat it like it's a church-related thing, like it's a Sunday morning thing, or like it's my Bible study time, or when I'm being a Christian. That's when I do this, but that's not how this works. It's what you walk in.
I think that's what really 2 John and 3 John do well, is it's a reminder of this, and then almost one or two very specific, here's an instance of, and that's what we get in these next verses. And I think that's something that John wants to be practical, wants to remind us of the overarching theme, like here's what I'm all about and what Jesus was all about. Here's a specific way that you can live that out. And, really, again, to go back to it, I think that's what any good preacher is going to do, is to say, here is the biblical mandate, and here's the way that you can go live your faith out Sunday afternoon after you hear the sermon, on a Tuesday morning or a Thursday evening. This is what it looks like for the rubber to meet the road in your life to really live it out. So, and speaking of that, Austin, you want to read, 8 through 13?
Alrighty. Watch yourselves, so that you may not lose what we have worked for, but may win a full reward. Everyone who goes on ahead and does not abide in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever abides in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house or give him any greeting, for whoever greets him takes part in his wicked works. Though I have much to write to you, I would rather not use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to come to you and talk face to face, so that our joy may be complete. The children of your elect sister greet you.
Okay. So it's a very specific instance there. If somebody comes to you, they don't bring the teaching, don't welcome them into your house. So,
which it's, I would take that as, like, especially back then, when you welcome somebody in your house, you're approving, you're approving of that person. And John here's trying to make it clear, like, if somebody is teaching things that are not true, we should not be
What's your translations on verse 9 read? Yes. You got the other name?
Mine, I have the ESV, and it says, anyone who goes too far and does not abide in the teaching of Christ. So almost this person's adding to the teachings of Jesus, or not necessarily the Gnosticism that we've talked about before with Jesus in a physical being, but kind of what the Pharisees and Sadducees were saying is that you need to be circumcised, you need to follow the Levitical priesthood laws to become a Christian. They were kind of, it's Jesus and that never works. It's Jesus alone or nothing. It can't be Jesus and this or that.
Yeah.
What is yours?
What's your translation say? Yeah.
Mine actually reads the same way. I was just curious. So it had the idea of going too far. I thought that was interesting. It goes to the comment I made earlier as far as like feeling like you run out of content. And part of the struggle you can have as a Christian is like you want that something more. You want to go too far in that way. Like you want something beyond it. And there's always a danger because people who present something like that, you go, oh man, like I'd never really thought of that before. Like that's kind of a novel thing, and that kind of makes sense. And we get caught up with this within the Christian world, especially today, where we hear things like that and we latch onto them. Whatever the teaching may be. I don't want to name the specific things, but there's some that come to mind that we take these things and we go too far with them. So.
Yeah. All right. Anytime someone comes out with what they would say is a new perspective on something biblical, I would I would be hesitant to jump down, the road with them and be like, oh man, this is great. Finally, somebody has something new that we've never read or heard or thought about. There's danger in that.
Yeah, I think to look at the historical significance of what was culturally what was going on. There wasn't motels and hotels and places that you could stay. So if someone was new in town, traveling through, you would offer hospitality to them. And if they've come to town and they're just in their culture, they were a prophet of Baal, and they were offering children or sacrificing humans, and it was well known. Then if you invite this person into your house, you're okay with them killing children or doing those things, and it basically you're rubber stamping, saying, well, I'm good with whatever they're doing. And it's a different culture that we have today, but I think you have to be careful with how close you can be with people, or how accepting. It's one thing to say, I love you and I care for you, I'm not going to belittle you or hurt you or scorn you with words, but we can't just stand by and say, well, you do you. That's a proper popular phrase these days. It's just not what we're called to do. We can't say, well, you do your thing and I'm okay with that. We do have to stand up for the gospel. So.
And how do you balance the picture you have here, which seems like don't associate with somebody you disagree with, and the picture we have in the Gospels of Jesus, who goes and eats with sinners and spends time with them? I have kind of wondered that and thought about that, and I feel like that's a common question of how do you walk that line? And I think the line is between the believer and the unbeliever. If somebody claims to be a believer and yet is teaching something false and erroneous, you say, I'm sorry that I'm not going to associate with that. I'm not going to give it even the credit of being seen with me. But when it comes to a non-believer, they're of course going to have their own, they have their own heretical teachings. All their teachings are heretical because they don't call Jesus Lord, But you get to this point of saying, if you're a non-believer, you don't just stop associating with all non-believers. The line is with somebody who is a believer who claims, hey, I've got Jesus, but have you tried, Old Testament law, or I've got Jesus, but have you also considered some secret knowledge that I have access to? Let's not move on beyond Jesus.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll go ahead and state, maybe you're thinking it's obvious. I grew up with some neighbors, and if there ever was a group of Jehovah's Witnesses that were going around, they're famous for knocking on doors and wanting to be invited in. The neighbors would just shut everything down. I can remember being over playing with friends and getting ushered into the back of the house, and they were like, hide, we don't want to talk to these people. It's sort of like red alert. And I've heard a lot of people use this to say, well, don't let them into your house. And I know my grandfather used to sit out on his porch, and as people would walk by, he would invite them to come up. He would offer them a glass of tea or lemonade or whatever that they had, and he would talk to them about Scripture. And a lot of people were like, oh, you don't need to do that with them. But to me, what you're talking about is exactly that. You would never say, I believe what you believe, get out of here, or support that ministry in any way. But to sit down and say, this is what I believe Scripture says, what do you believe Scripture says, and to have a conversation, that can be a blessing. And I don't think we should outright shun people, but it's when we get into those situations where I can't say what you're doing is correct, and I'm not just singling Jehovah's Witnesses out. There are lots of people that will come around and they want to do this, or they want support for that. And as Christians, if it's in the Word, we've got to support it and stand by it. And if it's not, we can lovingly, kindly say that's not in line with what Scripture says, but we're not called to support that or be a part of it. And in our culture, it is a little bit different, but anything that we do that would throw support behind it, we have to be careful of that. So, and I know in 3 John, there's another scripture that you can kind of get in there, pick at it, take it out of context a little bit, but it's interesting that John is so broad in certain respects and very specific at other times. I like that. I like that he's practical. Takes the big idea of Jesus and makes it very personal. Joey, would you care to read 3 John? Read verses 1 through 9.
The elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. For I was very glad when the brethren came and testified to your truth, that is, how you are walking in truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear of my children walking in the truth. Beloved, you are acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, especially when they are strangers, and they have testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God, for they went out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore we ought to support such men, so that we may be fellow workers with the truth. I wrote something to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first among them, does not accept what we say.
All right. This is another one of those that, John starts off, I like the fact that he's writing to an elder. He's writing to a leader of the church. And that's the way that I see it. 2 John starts out to the elder, to the chosen lady, and that's, maybe code for a church that's there. I like the personal relationship. It's, man, you're a leader. You've got to be living it out, and here's some of that. So what jumps out at you? What sticks out in those verses?
Certainly we see even my introduction here says this letter applauds a Christian for living out the teachings. Mm-hmm. All right, So you got in chapter 2, show hospitality in a right way. Don't do it for people who are teaching false teaching, because that will, harm your teaching. But quick highlight round here. Gaius, you're rocking it. You've really done well at this, and that's a beautiful thing.
Definitely. So you're acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, and I like that. It's not, I'm in charge. Look what I've done. Even what he's doing, which is super faithful, is for the brother. There's a goal. It's for the glory of God. It's for the building up of the church. And this is another. You look in there at verse 7. It says, in verse 6 too. It says, "You'll do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God, for they went out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles." I've heard some very pointed sermons that this is the basis for there should be no fundraising in the church. You shouldn't be selling cookies and going door to door and doing those kinds of the fundraising. And there's part of me that I look at this and I think, if we are who we say we are, if we believe that the gospel is as powerful as it is, and there's some kids that need to go to camp, or there's something that needs to be done in the church, we ought to step up and support that. There's something that's there. But again, culturally, historically, what's going on here, is there anything else that you might get out of this, from that admonition of, support them, don't take anything from the Gentiles?
I was thinking, how often do we, even as pastors, pray that God that we would be able to raise up people in our church and then send them out? We do everything we can to keep people in the church, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so here's John saying, man, you'll do well to send them out in the world for the glory of God. And man, it's convicting to think about, because we don't do that very often.
Well, they could have strengthened their local missions team.
Yeah.
If they had stayed, given them a heart for the.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of what I'm struck by this. There's some of that in 2 John as well. You've got the hospitality aspect of this that, is maybe lost a little bit for us culturally, even within the past 20 to 30 years, where, you're talking about your grandpa, offering lemonade or tea on the front porch, and now they'd be like, stranger danger, we're more paranoid.
Yeah.
We're more paranoid today with that kind of thing. Where it used to be like you were close with your neighbors, you knew people like that. But I think there is a call for us as Christians in hospitality that we are strengthening the church. We are strengthening the bonds of the church together across communities and across the world. And it says is it Hebrews? It says that some have unknowingly entertained angels, in doing so that, and in the sense that it's those that God is sending out. And certainly he's to be commended in that way. I do like too how he draws in 2 John, he draws the walking in love and the commandments of God, and in this he draws out the walking in truth. That there's that sense that they're testifying and walking in that, and he brings a great deal of joy within that. But again, what's it tied up in? Hospitality, which we would probably call as more of an act of love. There's always this truth and love dynamic that is throughout certainly the writings of John, but it shows up in Paul as well, where they're in agreement. I never like when we kind of pit different New Testament authors against each other. That, the typical one is James versus Paul, and they'll show the theology and preaching through that before all this started. One thing I love to do is quote how many times Paul says the exact same thing James says, and it's a lot. They say pretty much the same thing, and I think John, you would see the same thing. He just draws that truth and love out in a unique way to his writing.
I'd say in verse 7, talking about the accepting nothing from the Gentiles, that I think John's concern in regards to that, and even with Paul, who didn't accept, I guess, is that he didn't want to hinder the gospel in a way to think that, to allow personal gain to get in the way of the preaching of the gospel. Because here you say, for they haven't gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we support them in their work. What they're doing has nothing to do with anything they can get out of it. Right. And I think that's something that all of us, and I think particularly even sometimes in ministry, that can be a difficult thing sometimes, because you can be preaching about Jesus, but at the same time you can have your own motives and agenda that you have, and what you would like to see people do for you, and stuff. So I think that's something that's important. And Paul even talks about that as well. Like I said, he talks about it in Philippians. Some people preach Christ out of selfish ambition, but what matters is that Christ is being preached. It ends with that, but just some thoughts on verse 7.
Yeah, and I think the idea of partnership is probably more present here than we realize, to where if our church was approached by the McDonald's that's about a mile or two down the road from us, and they said, we'd love to build you a brand new church building, we can put these golden arches on it, it'll be the McChristian church or whatever, and there's strings attached to where we have to push that, we have to do those things. If we partner with somebody that doesn't have Christ's intentions in all of it, then we might get down a dangerous road. But if we are supporting ministries that are Christ-driven, if we are taking support from people that are Christians, we really can partner with them, and the goal is to glorify Jesus, not an individual. Like you said, there's not a selfish thing behind that. And again, John takes this and gives a very specific example, and then he actually goes a little further and gives a specific person who's been acting a wee bit selfish. Kudos to Joey for pronouncing that correctly, and even if you didn't, nobody knows, because who knows how that name is pronounced. But Bryce, would you care to read verses 9 through 15?
Oh, I gotta read his name.
You got to read the name again.
Yeah, you get it. Second try. Here you go. You got this, man. You got this.
I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes,
Good enough.
who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us, and not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers, and also stops those who want to, and puts them out of the church. Would you say till?
I'll just finish it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. Demetrius has received a good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. We also add our testimony. You know that our testimony is truth. I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name.
All right.
I love, by the way, 13 and 14, and this was the same in 2 John. He's like, oh, by the way, like, I'd like to come and talk with you. And he's like, oh, this is why 2 John and 3 John are so short. He's like, he's making it very clear as to why he is.
I want to show up there.
Yeah.
I do like in verse 10, there's the specific problem with a specific person. And my translation says, I will call attention to his deeds in which he is unjustly accusing us with wicked words, and he will not be satisfied. I really liked your translation, wicked nonsense.
Yeah.
There's part of me that wants that read in a Boston accent.
Yeah.
Wicked nonsense.
Yeah.
So, but you look at this and you see one person that does not have Christ's best interest in hand can wreck it. And to me, that's why not taking support from anybody, not having strings attached, not saying like, I sure would like to give you a gift for your building fund if you'll put this name on it, or if this power company can supply the electric to it, or you can get into some rough territory there.
Well, and it says that he's not really accepting the other brethren. It says that in how he's treating other people, which is interesting because we talk about that, the danger of who we associate with, but there's also the sense that you've got some people that are just so difficult. I mean, Diotrephes is clearly a guy who's not easy to work with. And I do love that John's strategy is like, I'm simply going to come and call attention to what he's doing. Like I'm not coming to like berate him it's going to be made evident what he's doing, and it's going to be plain. And really that's the way when you view conflict amongst church members, and this is good for us because we find ourselves in these situations. You let what you do speak for itself, and you let what you say speak for itself. You don't need to add these shades and all these other things to it. It's just that it is what it is, and it stands on its own.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is sadly common where somebody decides they're going to take over in leadership and do things their way. And if they're the ones that are giving the extra money or sort of pushing their heavy personality, things can get dicey. And that's why we follow Jesus' example. We live out his commandments, and we love like he did.
Yeah.
And
when this, we imitate what is good and not what is evil. And I do like that he gives a contrast with Demetrius, who is somebody whose behavior is being commended, and they've received a good testimony. And then it says, I like how he says that we add our testimony to that we've seen what he's been doing, and adding that to the mix. And so there is a good contrast there.
So I think that's an old management strategy: is you lead with the positive, you address a negative situation, and you end with a positive. So he's saying, Gaius, you are destroying this love and giving game. Like we love what you're doing. You are doing such a great job. This guy, we got Diotrephes, a little bit of an issue, but Demetrius, you're awesome, and I wish I could come see you.
Now that you've done that, I picture the boss from what's the movie? Where he's like,
Office Space.
Office
Yes.
Space. Yeah. Now I'm going to hear John read in the Office Space.
Yeah, I'm going to need trophies to back off of some of that. Yeah, very good.
I keep going back to the thought, like, this is a letter, like the 2 John is a letter to, like, the elect lady. This one seems to be a little bit more of a direct address, but if word gets out that Gaius has received a letter, and they say, what did John send to you? What did he send to you? And they're like, hey, you know what? How about you just read it this Sunday? Like, we'll all be together, you just read it. And he's like, that's okay. I don't think it's going to go over well.
Can I summarize? Let me hit some of the major points.
Right.
Yeah.
He just wanted to encourage me, and specifically Demetrius.
Did he mention anyone else?
I do like. I like to think about that though. Can you imagine the first time this was read or read out loud, or what that would have been like within the church and in the context it was? It's just neat to think about.
And it's something that we forget. I think that's worth mentioning that, this was not, let's open this book that we have and, read a few verses. This was a major point of contact from one of God's holy men inspired by the Spirit. So when this was read, people were eager to hear what it said. So when this pointed and specific of a circumstance is addressed, wow.
Yeah. It's interesting to think that, 2 John, 3 John, both really small letters, and there's not a lot said, and yet at the same time, divinely inspired through the Holy Spirit. God had this put in the scriptures for our benefit in some way, and we can read that and pull all these things out.
Absolutely.
So,
Go ahead.
I like how both 2nd and 3rd John end with him basically just being like, I'm writing to you, but I want to see you face to face. And I don't know, I almost got emotional a little bit reading that, to be honest. Because as much as being online, and I'm glad we have that, to be honest, it really stinks in my opinion. I love that I still feel the word is being preached, and that's great. But man, I miss everybody at my church a lot, and John here even like, man, I'm writing to you, but we'll see you face to face. I'll talk to you guys face to face. So
yeah, I think that's good. I think it'd be good for us to look at this and maybe see, can we apply what 2 John and 3 John are saying to be hospitable, to support the gospel message from a distance, but still be invested in it. It does. I'm with you. It does provide an awkward sense of, man, I don't know if I like this, or it's not the way that it used to be, and yet there's still some good that can come from it. But man, I want to be face to face, and I'm praying that when all of this is over, people can come back and really appreciate the meeting of the brothers and the sisters.
The friends.
Yeah.
It says here.
Friends. It's family. It's a close knit, a tightness that's there. So, well, I think maybe a good way to close would be to encourage you to, once this video is over, just take a few moments and ask God, how could I be hospitable? How could I welcome someone in the name of Jesus, share the gospel with them, and how could I support a gospel message and a gospel ministry that I know might be a little difficult with us not being able to get out the way we used to, but it's certainly possible. So, you guys don't have anything else? This has been wonderful. So we'll see you soon. God bless you.